Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Arm Coach Podcast, episode 13. Okay, so today we're talking about the think, feel, act cycle and how it relates to our arms. I've introduced this concept before, but today we're going to have a little bit of a primer, and here's why. Learning about the think, feel, act cycle was the key. It was so key when it came to me understanding why I was hiding my arms in long sleeves, why I relied on baggy clothes in certain situations, and how to unlearn my desire to cover up. That was huge. You can decide to bare your arms in a braced tank tops, and I did many times. I wore many sleeveless shirts, tried many arm workouts, but making that decision does not change your desire. If you want to change your desire, you have to understand the think, feel, act cycle. Not only that, but this model became my framework for understanding myself and my relationship with my arms. I talk about it all the time as a meta skill. So you might learn this model. You might learn how to apply it in relation to toning your arms and your self-confidence. But here's the thing. Once you learn it, once you understand how it works, once you see it in action and learn how to harness it, it becomes a meta skill. And what I mean by that is that once you have it down, you can apply it to anything you want to change about your arms and your life. I'm going to talk all about this cycle. I'm going to teach you how to tell the difference between the different parts, between thinking, feeling, and acting when it comes to your arms. I'm going to show you how to bring more awareness into your life so that you can actually see the cycle in action. And I'm also going to explain why this isn't just an interesting concept, because if it was just an interesting concept, it wouldn't explain why all of the results you have with your arms, including hiding them, why you have those results. So today we're starting with thoughts about your arms. All right. What do I mean when I say a thought about your arms? It sounds really obvious, but people actually have very different ideas about what your arm thoughts are. This is the way I think about it. Any language that goes through your head about your arms is a thought. So you can think of it as a sentence in your mind about your arms. That's what an arm thought is. Now, there are a lot of different metaphors that you can use to imagine what your arm thoughts are, but one of my favorite ones is the idea that your arm thoughts are like an electronic news ticker. I want you to imagine the news ticker on the bottom of the TV. That's scrolling ticker that's constantly circulating the headlines of the day. You can imagine that the thoughts about your arms in your mind are just like that ticker. There is a constant stream of arm thoughts that are running through your head. Okay, so why is this metaphor useful? It's useful because first and foremost, the most important skill you need to have in order to harness the think, feel, act cycle for your arms is to practice making a distinction between the arm thoughts that you're thinking and the part of you that can observe the arm thoughts that you're thinking. Okay? This is a key thing. Understanding the distinction between the arm thoughts that you're thinking and your ability, or that part of you, to observe those arm thoughts. If you're familiar at all with meditation, it's sometimes called the watcher or the observer. That's how they'll reference this part of you that can watch your thinking about your arms. You might also think of it as your consciousness, your ability to think about your arm thoughts. But listen, the point of this, the point of making this distinction is that if you can observe your arm thoughts, if you can think about your thinking about your arms, then you and your arm thoughts are not one and the same. You are not your arm thoughts. And in a minute, I'm going to explain why this is so important. But most of us really have never considered this before. The idea that because there's a part of us that can watch how we think about our arms, that can observe how we think about our arms, it means that there's a part of us that is separate from how we think about our arms. That is so key. Think of it. You've got this electronic news ticker in your mind, and every day on the ticker, You're thinking tens of thousands of thoughts about your arms. Not only are you noticing your arms, not only are you noticing how they look in the mirror, but you're also making assessments about your arms. You are assessing with your thoughts your biceps, your triceps, your shoulders, you name it. You are assessing all of these things. So your mind is not just noticing your arms, it's making judgments about your arms. I want you to think of it this way. Think about when you look at your arms in the mirror. When that happens, when you stand in front of your mirror at home, you are not just thinking to yourself, oh, those are my arms. That's my reflection. You are assessing your arm reflection. You look in the mirror and you might think something along the lines of, my arms look flabby. My biceps are too small. I've got bat wings, whatever it is. So you're not just noticing that those are your arms in the mirror. You're not just saying, hey, there are my arms. You are assessing your arm reflection. We do this with everything about our arms. And I'll tell you that most of us have gotten so used to the steady stream of judgments that we're always making about our arms and judgments that are always running through our minds, that the truth is we don't really pay attention to the fact that we're making judgments about our arms at all. Sometimes, and actually often, we don't even notice that they're there. These arm judgments, they really just become the background noise of our life. So one way to think about it is if you've ever decided that you were going to focus on toning your arms and you start doing arm exercises while watching TV, so the TV's on. And you might kind of half be listening to the TV while you're working on your arms, but after a while, you might not even notice that it's turned on at all. It's like a TV is on in the background that we're not paying attention to. This is exactly what it's like with this news ticker of thoughts and judgments and assessments about our arms that we're having all day long. But if you're going to harness the think, feel, act cycle to change how you feel about your arms, you have to change this. You have to become aware. So first, to harness that cycle, you need to bring awareness to your arm thoughts. You need to notice that electronic news ticker in your mind about your arms. You need to pay attention to it. It can't just be something in the background. It has to be something that you notice and you tune into. Second, you have to recognize that you are not your arm thoughts. You can observe your arm thoughts if you can think about your thinking about your arms. It means that you are separate from your arm thoughts. And if you're separate from your arm thoughts, then you and your arm thoughts are not one and the same. This is so key. If you're not one and the same with your arm thoughts, then you can change them. If your arm thoughts are you, if you can't observe them, you can't watch them, if you can't look at them, there's no way you can change them. But you can change them. It starts with recognizing that you are not the same as you're thinking about your arms. And then third, if you want to start to harness the think, feel, act cycle for your arms, you need to start to notice all the judging and assessing about your arms. You are not just looking in the mirror and saying to yourself, hey, those are my arms. That's my reflection. You're having an opinion. You are assessing your arms. So your arm thoughts are what start the think, feel, act cycle. You don't ever feel an emotion about your arms, and that includes the desire to hide them, without first thinking a thought about your arms. Most of us don't really pay attention to our thinking about our arms and don't understand that our thinking about our arms is creating our emotions about our arms, or understand that our thinking about our arms is creating our desire to hide them. Paying attention is what allows us to not just notice why we feel the way we do about our arms, but to really begin the work of understanding that our emotions about our arms including the desire to hide them, are things that can be changed. I'm going to tell you that really just the act of bringing awareness to your thinking about your arms, bringing awareness to your arm thoughts can actually be challenging for some people. And if you've ever thought to yourself, you know what? I don't really like looking at my arms, you'll understand why. So, some of the people that I work with, and I will tell you that when I first started to do this work as well, when I started to tune into my arm thoughts, I hated it. And the reason why was because I didn't like what I heard. I didn't like looking at my thinking about my arms because there was a lot of negative thinking about my arms in there. Here's the thing, if you're in the same boat, if you don't really like noticing all the negative thoughts that you're thinking about your arms, it's okay. All it means is that you're witnessing the think, feel, act cycle about your arms. You are watching that cycle unfold. And here's why. If you think a negative thought about your arms, you are going to feel a negative emotion about your arms. And that's okay. Nothing's gone wrong. When you think negative thoughts about your arms, you will feel negative emotions about your arms. That's how the cycle works. But most people get stuck here, and I want to explain why. The reason why people get stuck here, the reason why people tune into their arm thoughts just for a little bit and then say, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to look anymore. I don't like the way I feel about my arms. I don't like looking at my thinking about my arms. I don't like listening to all these negative arm thoughts. It's because they don't yet realize that they are not their arm thoughts. Any negative thought you have about your arms, whatever it is, my arms are too flabby, my biceps are too small, I hate my bat wings, whatever the negative arm thought is, it is not who you are. It is just your thinking about your arms. And most of us have no idea that there is a huge difference between the two of these things. But there is. There is a big difference between who you are and what you're thinking about your arms. Any negative thought that you have about your arms, anyone, is not who you are. It is your judgment. It is your assessment of your arms right now. It is that moment when you're looking at your arms in the mirror and instead of just objectively assessing what you see, hey, those are my arms, that's my reflection, you start to bring in all of your judgment about your arms. Most people don't get this. Well, because no one's ever explained it to us. So most of us just assume that our negative arm thoughts are who we are. We assume that the thoughts, my arms are too flabby, my biceps are too small, my bat wings are horrible, whatever it is, we assume that these arm thoughts are true. We assume that these arm thoughts are us instead of recognizing that they're judgments about our arms. The fact that you can observe the electronic ticker in your mind of all those thousands of thoughts about your arms going by, the fact that you can observe your thinking about your arms, the fact that you can notice its effect on you, means that you are not your thinking about your arms. And this is the best news ever. Because if you are not your arm thoughts, then you can learn how to change them. When you believe that your arm thoughts are who you are, let me tell you, you are going to feel helpless about your arms. And this is how I felt for a long time. And I think for many of you out there, many of you who are very introspective and really do pay attention to what you're thinking about your arms, you pay attention, but not in a way that gives you any distance. So think about it. The pages and pages and pages that you write down in your journal about your arms, that to you is all just true. That to you is all just who you are. And it feels really negative a lot of the time. And it can feel very helpless because we convince ourselves that the only way to stop feeling negative about our arms is to change our arms. And so we work and work and work to change our arms, to tone them, to shape them, whatever it is. And when that changing doesn't work, when we try as hard as we can, but we're still not happy with our arms, then what often happens is we turn to something outside of us that helps us cover up our arms. Think about it. When I went to a party and I thought to myself, I just don't belong here with these arms. My arms don't measure up. I'm so out of my element with these arms. I just thought all of that was true. I didn't understand that there was any distance between my arm thoughts and myself. It was all just true. And when my attempts to get more toned and shapely arms didn't make me feel better, well, I felt stuck and I wanted to feel better about my arms. I wanted some relief. And the truth is that I knew how to get it. I had learned a long time ago that the very best way to change how I felt about my arms, and that meant hiding them. You do that enough times, and guess what? You will create a habit of using long sleeves to numb your negative emotions about your arms and to change how you feel about your arms. The only problem is it's not very sustainable. You can't keep hiding your arms so that you can feel less awkward, less insecure, less out of your element with your arms. But guess what? When you show up to your next party, those feelings about your arms haven't gone away because those arm thoughts haven't changed. And so you keep needing to grab a sweater so that you can start to feel better about your arms. And I'll tell you, if you've ever felt bombarded by your thinking about your arms, and I know that this is something that is so true for me, and a lot of the people that I work with will say that they feel kind of bombarded by all the thoughts about their arms in their mind. It's only because you believe that your thinking about your arms is outside your control. And the only reason you believe that is because no one has ever shown you the think, feel, act cycle about your arms in action. No one has ever shown you how to harness it and how to use it to your advantage when it comes to your arms. And instead, what happens is that almost all of us assume that the way we think about our arms is fixed, that our arm thoughts are just who we are. They are just a true assessment of our arms. And we really miss the connection between the way we think about our arms and the way we feel about our arms and the way we act about our arms. And we have no idea how much power we have to actually harness this cycle for good when it comes to our arms. So if you find the concept of observing your arm thoughts challenging, look, all you have to do is something that I call an arm thought download. All I want you to do is set a timer for 5 minutes and write down whatever comes into your head about your arms. It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to flow in a logical order. Just observe what's in your head about your arms and get it down on a piece of paper. And when the timer is up, stop writing and look at what you wrote. Those are your arm thoughts. What's on the piece of paper is that inner monologue that is going on in your mind about your arms all the time. When you get those arm thoughts on a piece of paper, it's one way to give yourself distance, to look at them, and also to start to process and question them. That will be huge. And that's something we're going to talk about more in another episode. So here's the final point, and this one is essential for you to be able to use the think, feel, act cycle for your arms. What you have written down on that piece of paper, whatever your inner monologue is about your arms, whatever that electronic news ticker is of yours that's running through your mind about your arms, here's the thing. It's not an objective reflection of reality about your arms. It's not. The reason why is because all of those arm thoughts contain your assessments and your judgments about your arms. An objective reflection of reality would be to look at your arms in the mirror and think, oh, those are my arms. That's my reflection. But that's probably not what is running through your mind. That's probably not what goes through your head when you look at your arms in front of the mirror. For so many of us, what's running through our minds are thoughts like, my arms look terrible. What's wrong with my bat wings? I really should lose the flab on my arms. Whatever it is, all these judgments and assessments that we have about our arms. When you think about the think, feel, act cycle for your arms, it really is looking at your arms in the mirror and understanding that your arm reflection never causes a negative emotion about your arms. You only feel insecure or anxious or awkward about your arms when you have a thought that judges or assesses how your arms look. The reflection of your arms in the mirror doesn't create the way you feel about your arms. Your thoughts about your arm reflection create how you feel about your arms. For most of you, those are some pretty negative emotions about your arms. But guess what? Those arm thoughts are not who you are. They are just thoughts in your mind about your arms that you haven't learned to notice, you haven't learned to question until now. Once you get those arm thoughts down on paper, once you start to observe your thinking about your arms instead of being at the effect of it all the time, you will start to see that your arm thoughts are changeable. And I'll tell you, this is not something that you have practiced yet when it comes to your arms. What you have practiced and what all of us spend years practicing are these unconscious arm thoughts. Well, if I think something about my arms, it must be true. Or this is just the way my arms are. Or I can't change how I feel about my arms. We've all unknowingly practiced this belief that it's not our thoughts that create our feelings about our arms, right? It's our arms themselves. And our feelings about our arms, frankly, are not within our control. But they are. The reason why it's so important to really pay attention to the think, feel, act cycle when it comes to your arms and really start to understand how it works in relation to your arms is because it flies in the face of what our society and what our culture conditions us to believe about our arms. We are conditioned to believe that our arms themselves create how we feel about them. And it's the exact reason why we spend so much time and energy wishing that our arms were more toned, more shapely, less flabby, whatever it is, because we've been taught that these are the things that keep us from feeling good about our arms. We've been taught that it's not the thoughts that we think about our arms, but it's our actual arms themselves. So the reason why so many of us spend so much of our time preoccupying ourselves with trying to find the perfect arm workout or the perfect arm toning diet or fantasize about getting arm liposuction, whatever it is, because we think that this is what's going to make us feel better about our arms. We think that that's how we're going to feel better about showing off our arms. And when we don't feel better about our arms, when we try all of these things and we still have these negative emotions about our arms, we still feel insecure or awkward about our arms, whatever it is, we often turn to something outside of us to feel better about our arms. We do that enough, it becomes a habit. So this week, I really want you to pay attention to the thoughts that are running about your arms. I want you to remind yourself that they are just sentences in your mind about your arms. Get those arm thoughts on a piece of paper and practice observing them with some distance. Be aware that these arm thoughts are not who you are. And you know what? If you start to do this regularly, you will notice that you feel a little bit calmer and you have a bit more perspective on your arms. And it will really open the door to start to examine all the thinking you have about your arms, all the thinking you have about what change will be like for your arms, and all the thinking you have that creates your desire to hide your arms. But first, you have to start with really practicing observing and understanding your arm thoughts. All right, that's it, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, all about understanding your thoughts about your arms. If you're ready to take the next step in transforming your relationship with your arms, I'd love for you to join me in my program, Arms by Christine, where we dive deep into the think, feel, act cycle as it relates to our arms and learn how to harness it to liberate ourselves from long sleeves and embrace our arms with confidence. You can find out more and sign up at christinerucker.com. Okay, that's it for today. I'll see you on the next episode.